Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stories from the Earth podcast. This is Jennifer, your friendly neighborhood podcaster, sort of tacking this on to the beginning of our podcast. I have a special announcement. Brooke is offering a 8-week flower essence course called Plants Drop Wisdom, and she is gifting our listeners and viewers a $25 off coupon. So if you're interested, the coupon code is all capital letters stories. That's STORIES. A little bit about the course. It's an 8-week flower essence practitioner course that blends the intelligence of nature, the insights of Vedic, hope I got that right, psychology, and the heart of Tantra to support deep emotional and spiritual healing. And you will learn to prepare potent flower essences, create personal wellness protocols for yourself and others, build an apothecary and connect directly with your plant allies, access affordable tools to support mental and emotional well-being, and feel more at home in your body and more connected to the earth. And this is a journey for healers, seekers, and earth lovers who want to be of service in a grounded, soulful, and revolutionary way. And registration is open and spaces are limited. So the class should start very soon after this podcast drops. It's like in the beginning of June. It is starting June 3rd. So this is the last day of May. So it's very, very close. It sounds really good. You get sort of like a hybrid where there's 90-minute weekly Zoom meetings or in person, plus like working on your own with weekly plant meditations, activities, journal prompts, live Q&As, an in-depth Materia Medica of over 100 flowers, flower essence PDF manual. There's an optional in-person wild temple field studies, WhatsApp group for extra community love, and there's more. So it sounds like a really good value. It is $650 or 2 payments of $335. But it's 8 weeks. So I think that if you're interested, this is a really good class. So thank you, Brooke. And now we're going to start the podcast. Okay, we are recording.
All right. So I'll just offer a little practice to help us all ground in and center. So if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes or soften your gaze and just feel into the comfort and ease of the body. So whatever that means for you, maybe sitting up a little taller or leaning back on the chair and just finding your breath. And the first thing you'll notice is the breath shallow or deep? And to bring us into our center, you want to deepen the breath. Let it get low. Let it become more voluminous. And this becomes a sort of lullaby for the mind. So you can feel the inhalation, maybe the actual sensation of the breath moving in through the throat, maybe a physical response of the belly softening, the diaphragm dropping down. And as you exhale, just feeling again whatever that tangible sensation is to bring you into this moment. One of my favorite practices for centering is to orient in time and space. So if you felt that the front of your spine was east, to the right is south, to the back is west, to the left is north, you can just feel into, again, your spine, your center is this breath, this comfort and ease as you come into this moment. And as you inhale, you can just welcome in the eastern direction and any plant, spirit, or ally, ancestors or angels that you feel aligned with, just breathing them in, calling them in. And as you exhale, it's your gift of self back to all that you're calling in. So breathing out into and honoring nature, the plants, the eastern direction of air. And we'll just take a couple breaths as we kind of call in, feel the direction of the south to your right. And traditionally, this can be fire, it can be passion, it can be purpose, inspiration. So just breathing in all of those qualities and any of those plant deities, angels, guides, ancestors that are supporting you in those journeys, that path. And as you exhale, the prayer back, your connection to all that surrounds you, all that's within you. And then the back body, which is the western direction, governs water and emotion. So just breathing in and this nice, beautiful, deep wave of breath, just calling in ancestors, plant allies, angels, the guiding ones that can help you move through your emotions, let your feelings not be damned, but moved. So your heart can be touched to guide your mind. And on your exhale, you're giving back to this and these sources. And you just feel the breath moving more towards these even waves as you're calling in and offering your prayers. And then to the left, and just feeling the calling in of the northern direction, the ancestors, land, their lineages. And this is structure, form, foundation, safety, security. And just breathing in the allies, the ancient ones, the shining ones that support you on this journey. Your exhale, connecting to the earth, to these qualities, to these sources and forces. And then just coming back into your center and whatever that feels like for you. So maybe it's your spine, maybe it's your low belly. And just feeling the breath again, even waves. We're working towards a nice, sweet, full inhalation, a nice, sweet, full exhalation. As you feel you've just called yourself in. You're centered in yourself, oriented in alignment with nature and the subtle forces of nature through practice of devotion. And if it feels comfortable for you, you can just place your hands, palms together, or sometimes I like to just place one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly. Really tangibly feeling the embodied self. And then softly opening your eyes when you're ready.
Well, thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yeah.
And now that everyone is grounded, we can start the interview.
And sometimes it's hard, right? It's hard to ground. It's hard to even just close your eyes. It's hard to feel your body, especially when we're not used to it, or when there's heightened levels of stress all around us or distraction. And so the key, the tool is the breath. Or sometimes it's feeling. It's the feeling that moves you instead of the intellectual idea of what it is you're doing. So, some people really feel like, oh yeah, the ancestors, and these elements, and I want to connect to that, and it moves you, and that moving then again can like move us out of the thought. Yeah, come into our center.
Yeah, because we're all brain a lot, and we the body's sort of
pushed aside.
Lost in translation.
Yes, and it then it ends up yelling at you quite loudly. So you don't. It's a part that should not be discounted, and but we don't really learn how to connect both mind and body at all.
Yeah.
A
It's
lot
I
of
think
noise.
why you have me here, right?
That's why we have, yes.
To talk about how to do that in practical ways. Yeah.
Let us introduce our guests and ourselves for everyone listening and watching. Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Braverman.
And I'm Ellen Selm.
And welcome to our podcast, Stories from the Earth,
where we explore humankind's relationship and connection with the natural world.
So I'd like everyone to take out your phones or whatever devices you're watching or listening to this podcast on. And I'd like you to scroll down to the podcast descriptions and find the links. And if you have not already, please find your favorite social media platform and give us a quick follow. We appreciate it a lot. And if you love what you hear today and you have an extra $1, $5, or $10 a month, please consider supporting us on our Patreon page. We would also love to hear from you. If you have questions or comments, cool stories to share, suggestions on podcast topics, feel free to email us at storiesfromtheearth@gmail.com. Today we are honored to be talking with Brooke Sullivan. She is a yoga therapist, tantric herbalist, writer, retreat leader, and educator of the science and philosophy of, and Brooke, you're going to have to help me on this.
It's Sri Vidya Tantra of the Himalayan Sages, and I can even break that down a little bit.
She is the director of the Wild Temple School of Yoga and Herbal Wisdom, leader of the Tantric Yoga Therapy program, a 500-hour RYT, which stands for Registered Yoga Radical Yoga Teacher training, called the Sage Apprenticeship, an initiative of the Himalayan Sages. Her passion is to connect people with nature and ancient tantric wisdom for health, empowerment, and courage to live life fully. As a dharma igniter, she helps people, families, and organizations step into their highest, healthiest, most powerful version of themselves.
Brooke's dedication to yoga and healing arts has been cultivated for over 20 years of experience in Tantra Yoga, Ayurveda, Herbalism, vitalism, vibrational healing with flower essences, homeopathy, and Tibetan energy healing, and holistic women's care, as well as cultivating the art of self-care while traveling internationally. A Grammy-winning artist, a lover of nature, she has a deep and driving desire to understand and connect to the beauty and joy in life. She currently lives and runs the Wild Temple School of Yoga and Herbal Wisdom here in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of the unceded lands of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee. Brooke also has her own podcast called The Wild Temple. Thank you for joining us today, Brooke.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So we're just going to jump right into it and start with sort of the basics. Yeah, I wanted to start out with some definitions. I think we all think that we know what yoga is, but I don't think we do. Our culture is very good at giving us only a surface level understanding of many things. So can you give us a better understanding of what the practice of yoga is and maybe like what it's supposed to do? Like doing yoga is, yeah.
It's more than just an exercise.
Probably a better word. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, this is such a great question. A really good term to demystify, and I really love etymology. So I think it's a perfect place to start. Yoga traditionally means to yoke or to bring things together. And so if you think about that in a time where we're largely disconnected from our mind and our body, for example, it's a practice that brings connection. So it's yoking the experience of being a whole, healthy body. And the yoking is done through the practice of, in my tradition of Sri Vidya Tantra, the breath. So what this means is that there is a way that we can breathe to calm the mind, to feel what's going on in the body. And the more we do so as a practice, the more we are no longer disconnected, and we're coming into this holistic experience of the self, where it brings calm tranquility to the mind. You start to feel more vital in the body, or you start to notice where you're not feeling that vital, and then you can make the choices to do something about it. And the practices are awakening you to what's a little more subtle than the obvious, right? So we have our five senses and we see this external world, but we're often taught that there's more to reality than just what we can see, taste, feel, touch, hear, smell, etc. And there's more to our physical body, because we're not just creature bodies, right? We have spiritual capacity. And so, what does that mean for people? Spirituality can mean so many things, but for me, it's not dogmatic, it's not orthodox religion, and it's more of your essential nature is you are nature. And so the practice of yoga is essentially bringing you back to nature. And so it's bringing you back to your true nature, not what people have told you you are, or what you've been expected to become when you grow up, or even your faults and fancies, right? It's really your true essence, your strengths, your capacities, your talents, your skills, as equally as your faults and your shadow sides, your shadowy natures, right? So the practice of yoga is to bring you back into understanding who you are. And that path of practice is called self-realization. So understanding yourself as like a child of Mother Nature, or like a little baby world in and of yourself, is the key to the practice. And when we wake up to that, all kinds of other things start to fall into place. We actually start to, what I call, exalt from our base desires or base ways of thinking and perceiving the world into more compassionate, more clear, more empowered ways of seeing and experiencing the world. And when we do this, we're also seeing that as baby nature, we have to tend to nature, because we are an extension of nature. And so I think that, yoga, specifically my lineage and what I teach and what I practice, is a path back to her, to Mother Nature.
Sounds like just about everyone on the planet could use a little of that.
Yeah.
When I was listening to some of your podcast episodes, when you were talking about this subject, one of your interviews, recent interviews, I went through like a major health crisis about 6 years ago, and I had to do a lot of that type of work in order to get healthier and functioning, at least. But I did it through a very excellent counselor. I also did yoga. I went with my parents to the Y to do yoga every week. And we had this yoga teacher. And the thing I really liked about him was he asked at the beginning, hey, does anyone have anything that they wanted to work on? And he would do like poses for that. And so I slowly learned all the poses for like digestion, because that's my main issue. And then I sort of made my own little yoga practice with all those poses that I do every day. I realized, because I know that there's like many different types of yoga, but the one I ended up sort of doing just on my own was like a very slow one where you just hold the poses for a while. And in fact, I usually end up falling asleep in one of the poses. So, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, because I just did it. And then I also did a lot of breath stuff. I went to see a body person doing massage and body work, and we did like breath practices, and all the healing was mind body. It's very similar to what you're teaching. Took different sort of paths, saw different practitioners, and sort of put them all together. But
yeah, that's really challenging too, especially if the practitioners, right, have different modalities, and then trying to fit it together like a puzzle can take a lot of time and energy and a lot of efforting. And that integration piece is why I love the practice that I love to do is really dedicated to integration. And I don't feel yoga should be separated from its sister science of Ayurveda or something similar. So Ayurveda is typically a 5-element theory system of the science of life, health and vitality through nutritious lifestyle, going to bed at a good time, tending to your hygiene and hydration, pooping well, all of these things. And so whether it's Unani medicine or holistic herbalism or traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, I think that's necessary for a yoga practice, right? For you to have that kind of holism that can then not be you're in a state of ill, whatever it might be, a diseased state.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's where a guide or a mentor is really important. And they can, bring you like a holistic system that's not just Frankensteining things together, which is often what our yoga is. Even in yoga studios, you might have people really skilled at just the body and anatomy. First of all, it's not a one size fits all. So it's really a little challenging for group classes to tend to everyone's needs.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, as I said, like kind of parceled out. And it's just back bends and power poses, and that's why I think yoga has such a bad rap, and it's doing harm because it's isolated and appropriated like that. And when we bring it all back as to what it really means and what it offers in a holistic way, like you said, everybody could use this. And yeah, that's the point.
I sort of had to, like, when I was at the point where I was so sick that I went to my, I don't live in Texas. I went to my parents in Texas and I stopped working, and I was, barely functioning, and I had lost 80 pounds and I couldn't eat and I couldn't, do all these things. I was really off the road as far as medicine was concerned. I know my gastroenterologist was like, I don't know, acupuncture. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about that before. But so I think that a lot of us, because we're really unfamiliar with these practices, when we're faced with health crises and even like more minor ones, we sort of are just puzzle piecing it together, and we don't quite know where to go. I think I was really lucky in being able to put something together that was more holistic.
You were lucky and you managed to do it, but to Brooke's point, how much easier would it be if there was just one mentor who could be like, hey, here's the package.
That would be much easier, yes, and that, society would, allow for me to A, know about it, and B, already be practicing it, so maybe I wouldn't have gotten as sick as I did. So yes, that.
Yeah, and society pushes us so much, so we are getting sick, right? Our number one epidemic is stress, and our number one, I would say, pathogen is overwhelm. And so when we have overwhelm and we're also trying to find, all right, well, this feels good, so I'm going to follow this, or this person or this medicine, I trust it, so I'm going to follow this. But when we're not offered an integrative, holistic system, it can be you're still just putting Band-Aids on symptoms. You're not necessarily like pulling things out from the root and then getting that deep cure. I remember when I first went to Ayurveda school, I went to Mount Madonna in California, Watsonville, California, and I was already 20 years in to herbology and yoga. And I kind of coming through the window to come out the front door in life. I've already had these deep passions and practices, and it was 2020 that I decided to get my formal education in Ayurveda. And what I learned was, in our first lesson, it was an herbalist, and he's a doctor with specifically working with herbs. His Vidya J, amazing guy. You can find him on Instagram, Vidya J. And he was sharing that 80%, 90% of our illnesses come from irregular lifestyle habits. And we're just not eating well, or we're eating too late, or we're overeating. it's not going to be fixed by herbs. Herbs are so important and so valuable in so many ways. And I would say for me personally, were my lifeline. Like 25 years ago, I started both simultaneously on the path of yoga and herbs. So to me, they're already kind of connected. But it was the herbs that I really leaned in on, where very much like you, I was dealing with just chronic illness and then also acute illnesses and things that I've had, I think, about 8 different near-death experiences in this life. And many of them have been from very mysterious illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always turn to my antivirals, my adaptogens, even my tonics. Like I had hepatitis. I had hepatitis C for like 15 years. And
Wow.
nobody knew what it was. But I swear by dandelion, burdock, yellow dock as a trinity that enabled me to do the work that I needed to do so that I wasn't just lying on the couch completely in pain or with headaches and fatigued. And yet, it wasn't getting to the root. And so
Mm-hmm.
that little gem of it's actually lifestyle. It's actually also what's going on in your psyche and your emotions. How we think is making us and pushing us into states of overwhelm or distraction or keeping us out of our center, where our very slow primal animal body is like, wait a minute, just sit down so I can digest this food, please. It was very rich. Don't hop in that car with anxiety on your mind to get the kiddos right now. Like, give me just a moment. So those practicalities then start to really weave in this deeper understanding of what whole health is and
Mm-hmm.
who you are on this journey of self-realization or just living joyfully, fulfilled, connected, right? Yeah, there's a holism here that we're missing.
So hard with the structures of that work puts you into. Add a few kids and and other things into the mix, and even if you wanted to slow down, work's like, hey, do more. And you're like, oh, okay. I got 30 minutes for lunch, so I'm like, okay, I gotta fast maybe microwave my food, walk out to my car, and then like try to cram it in, maybe work in a bathroom break. I think people don't know what's wrong and why they're not feeling good. And I think that when they do find out, it's like, well, how do I circumnavigate or circumvent or try to do what I need to do for myself, even though the society is the antithesis of everything that I need to be healthy and happy, but I unfortunately need to make money. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And this is, I think, where I'm so passionate about. And this term, I just did a post on this, was like, what does this term mean for you? Revolution, right? What if we are revolting against this paradigm and these structures that are actually limiting our capacity towards feeling good and actually making a healthy living with healthy lifestyle routines connected to our family, aging well, all the things? We are not supported in our society, and we know this, and things are coming to light right now, like lancing a boil. There's a lot of shit rising to the surface. And I feel it's just this prime opportunity where if you look at the cycles of humanity, people rise up, they form unions against child slavery, or what is it,
Mhm.
like work slavery, all of these ways that we can band together to have a more powerful impact to make change is really important, as well as just like staking your ground, having some non-negotiables. I guide a lot of clients and I have apprentices. I hear what you just shared so many times, and I only have 30 minutes for lunch, Brooke. I often will go to my car and eat, or I'm in a lunchroom and everyone's talking to me and it makes me so stressed and I don't have time to downplay the sensory experience so that I can just enjoy my food. So what some of the things I've offered is make your meal in an Instapot or something that can be insulated. You do that like the night before, and you can plug it in or have it all pressurizing while you're getting ready in the morning. It's just already thrown in your soaked beans, your veggies, your very delicious bone broth, whatever. You hit pressure cook. It takes 20 minutes. And then you're getting all your stuff ready. And then you take that whole freaking Instapot with you. You plug it in if you can somewhere at work. And then you have that hot meal where all you need to do is take it to someplace quiet and eat. And then that leaves you 20 minutes, probably just 10 minutes of eating kind of mushy food, right? You don't have to chew. Then you have the 20 minutes of, oh, wow, just breathe for a minute. Because, right, when we can't digest when we're also getting all of these other sensory impressions. And if we have anxiety, it's going to block our body's ability to digest. And there's a lot of science behind this in yoga and Ayurveda. And it's that, what can we do to meet our unique needs? Because we're not like a one size fits all person, right? We need to just find out what really works for me and then make those non-negotiables.
Well,
and then bitters. And then have the bitters or the sweet bitters, nourishing.
Yes.
What is it that set you on this path that you found yourself on in life as a teacher and healer and guide? I mean, you mentioned having some health crises yourself, so I'm sure that helped sort of dictate the direction, but what is it that got you to where you are now in that way?
Thank you. That's such a great question. I would say partly out of necessity, partly out of empowerment, and partly out of inspiration. So necessity, empowerment, and inspiration all put me on this path of mentor and guide, both in the realms of yoga and herbs and what I call dharmic living. So really helping people with their purpose and really amping up all of their kind of warrior traits, all of their amazing skills and talents in a way that they're like forces of nature, nobody can mess with. And that really comes from, if I go way, way, way back, I think I started in a very disempowered way in this life. Family was broken at a very young age. I suffered a lot of abuse at a very young age, starting at age 2. And I wound up still being in a house of very loving parents, but they had inherited so much trauma that they were not great parents. It was a very toxic living situation. So I actually left at age 15. I went to the streets and I decided if my family isn't going to support me and see me and love me in the ways that I need them to, I will find a chosen family. And so I did. And that gave me a little bit of a clue as to I'm willing to do anything to feel good and empowered and to actually kind of create my own path, not what someone's chosen for me. So I lived on the streets in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't recommend it. And I lived with a punk rock family. I was really big into just women's health, women's autonomy in their body. I was very much an atheist. My upbringing had no religion in it, or very confusing religion. And I was just like, man, none of that attracts me. And then I just proceeded to self-medicate. And again, I don't recommend that either. To kind of step out of that, I realized I was now 6 years in a very misaligned way, that my mind was overly active. I was so disconnected from my body. I had no idea that even what I ate affected my mood and affected the pain that I had in my belly from age 5. I had digestive issues, really bad ones since age 5. All kinds of scenarios in that way, but I wound up going to college. I put myself through night school. I just did all the things that I thought could lead me at least into not being continuously living in poverty. You live on the streets, you're in poverty. But what I did is I met really amazing people. A guy named Bear, who was this wonderful big black man who worked in the mechanic shop. He took me under his wing and he was like, you need hobbies, Brooke, and gave me a pool stick and he gave me a bike. And he's just like, do you, kind of listening to what filled me with joy. And, in the beginning, that was pulling me to the wrong things, again, like a lot of partying and a lot of self-medicating. But what wound up happening was I am in my deepest nature, I'm such an international person. I've always, since a very young age, I studied French, and then I studied Russian and, German, all these languages and cultures. And so I wound up just backpacking. I hitchhiked through Mexico, through Guatemala, and I would just stay with the villagers. This is when I first experienced, with no mirrors and nobody around me to tell me who I was, a true sense of who I really was. And that's when nature started to really speak to me more and more. When I was young, I was left alone all the time, and I was always in nature. So nature was very much like my mother. But this was different. This was like, I started to wake up in a way where I felt like I was communicating with the trees. Like they were talking to me. They were guiding me. The waters were guiding me. Even the landscape. I could listen to the land, and it was helping me remember who I was. And so that led me then to, when I came back, I found a teacher who was not a traditional teacher of the sense of like a university academia, which was where my mindset was. But instead, she was a midwifery teacher. Her name's Wapio Diane Bartlett. And I went through midwifery school.
Oh, was she in
what?
Asheville?
She was in Asheville.
I knew some of her students. I did a women's group, and we had it at the school. So, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, the House of Lama Trona. Yeah, over there on off Mike Klingman. She had quite the healing hub of a house, a magnet to many, many teachers and many events. And so, yeah, it was in West Asheville. It was like a 3-story house, old Victorian, and the beautiful garden in the back. And that's really where, again, for me, I seem to turn towards community and like friendships as mirrors as to like who I am and just where I want to be in life. And so in that time frame, it was just a lot of women. And so with a lot of women, and I started to really learn about the plants, and I got pregnant, and I did have my child, and she's wonderful. She's 24 now. And yeah, but it was really out of necessity, I would say. So first it was just trying to find my power, my sense of self. I needed to heal. I knew I was broken, and I didn't really know what and how and why. And necessity then was, I wanted to be a good mother, and I wanted to do things differently than how I was raised, which was highly vaccinated, highly medicated. I was put on Wellbutrin and Zantac, Tagamet, all of these digestive antacids, is that what you call it? I don't even remember anymore, but a lot of medications from a very young age, and it didn't help me. And what I knew with working with Wapio, our motto was bring birth back to the family. And in order to do that was empower the family, ultimately. And I love this motto because it's not just empowering yourself. It's thinking about others as well. And I think for nurturers and caregivers, many of you probably listening really resonate with this. We often put the others and like those we love before us. So we want the good things for the people that we care about. And then we're like, oh yeah, and then me too, So, but this training was, no, really look at you. Plants can help you. What is your relationship to your body, your relationship to others? And then that just kind of created this trajectory of how to bring in a more holistic way these different allies, whether they're plant allies or nature or nutrition, in a means that I can start to feel really whole and healthy. But I will share here that then I started to get really knocked down with, I think what I caught was like a West Nile virus without knowing about it. Again, I had this mysterious hepatitis C. Just the herbs and the nutrition really weren't getting to all of it. And so, yeah, I want to pause because I know I can talk a lot, but I can share a little more if you have particular questions around this one.
Well, actually, Jennifer, your next question kind of ties into the trajectory of her story here.
Yeah, I just want to make one quick comment on that I feel very similar on my, I guess, healing journey is I'm just sort of feel like I've gotten to a point, but I am still not where I want to be.
It's hard when there's like from the outside, you know that there's a problem that's keeping you from being healthy and aligned with like what your needs are, but yet you need it, or you think you do, right? For just survival. And then if you have a mysterious something on the inside that is also acting like a saboteur and keeping you down, right? So how I love to look at this really is similarly to this yoga, like our inner nature, understanding that, what are our unique needs, to outside. How is our relationship to the external world and nature around us? And so we can work on both. We can work on,
Yeah.
if the job is not right for me, if they're not supporting my body and what my body needs, I need to get a different job. If it's I'm in an emotional state that is perpetuating a dysfunction, I need to tend to the emotions. I have been on this journey for 25 years with that question mark. And so I think that that question mark is now exclamation, because I've gotten so many tools and skills, like working with people and my own journey, that it's, the answer is holistic. Right? The answer is definitely holistic. And it's this mirroring of, we're not just our environment, but we're not also just navel gazing. It's not just all about us. I did this for years. My belly sucks. I am horrible at digesting food. And then what I realized was it was my emotions and my nervous system that actually, because the nervous system and the digestive system interface. That's why we have chamomile. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant for tending to that intersection of nervous system and digestive system. But when we're only looking at the one system,
Right.
again, we're Frankensteining our healing, and we're just reducing it into this narrow approach, when instead we can expand, but in a holistic way, integrate the tools that were really held. And that's my particular tradition of yoga, is called Tantra. And Tantra actually means to expand, but to weave everything back together in a way that empowers you. So Tantra is definitely not about just sex. That's an appropriated westernized view of an extraction of a culture that's a full life science. And so the real classical Tantra is, what are the tools that give you the freedom to feel joy and fulfillment in life?
I'm glad you clarified that, because I think
Yeah.
everybody has their preconceptions of yoga as an exercise or whatever, and certainly the appropriated reductionistic angle of Tantra as well.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because like you said, I think, Jennifer, you're like, I don't even know what to really ask for, what's out there. I think you said that earlier. Like when you're on your healing path, you're just like, we're only able to look towards and to find what we can see and what we've been told and what we know is out there. But what I think is such a shame is that the full system of yoga, that's with its sister science of Ayurveda or something similar, and this term Tantra, which has been misused and appropriated and even hidden, it's in like the closet, is, we have these systems that are like, they're really the answers to what we're needing right now. And this is that revolution that I'm talking about. Like there are tools. There are not only tools, but stepping stones and a methodology that can free us from this unwanted stress and the fitting in the box of what culture is expecting of us, and our mysterious healing that we can't quite get the finger on.
What is your definition of health and healing?
I think it can be boiled down possibly into one word: vitality. I think that when we have a vital mind, that means that our mind is calm, it's peaceful, it's clear, it's empowered, it's focused. When we have a vital body, we're not fatigued. We are not worried about, can I eat that, or can I carry that without breaking my back, or whatever. Right? There's the vitalism term actually comes from my first gateway in to the healing arts, and it was through understanding vital life force. And so when we have vitality, when our life force energy is moving through us unimpeded, our body is naturally, just like nature, completely intelligent of its own design. We don't need to do anything to it or for it. Right? So a lot of our practice for finding health, that healing journey, would be then to get out of our own way, to remove the stressors, to release the blocks that are preventing that vitality. And we can even look at vibrancy, right? So maybe you feel vital, but are you vibrant? And what does that look like? And to me, that feels like you're really showing up as your unique self, but with a purpose and like a dedicated angle to this life, that you are important to all of us, right? That kind of vibrant nature of yourself to me is health. And when we're just, maybe we've gotten the wealth, we've accomplished the job, we have all the children, all of these like base needs that we think we want, and often we do, right, to feel fulfilled. But when you reach like, okay, 60s and I've done all that, yet I'm still not happy. Maybe you live in your gated community, maybe you eat very well, you have the nice partner, you're aging well, all the things. But the vibrancy of actually giving back to community, of doing the work to really kind of uphold the web of life, whether it's being an environmental steward or having a healthy regenerative relationship to the world, or volunteering at a local charity, whatever it might be, that to me is also health. So I think health is community and self, from that holistic vitality where life force is moving through you, but also in and out of you in a very delicious way where we're together. I hope that made sense.
Our culture is very me-centered and not very community-centered. So I think that extra bit is often, or not extra bit, but that other part is often not even included in like the equation.
That's actually a pointer that it comes from Buddhism. It also comes from our Himalayan Sage tradition, but it's that we need three things in this kind of dark time of humanity that's called the Kali Yuga, kind of the dark ages. We need three things as like shining light. And the first is self-inquiry. So the term in Sanskrit is swadhyaya. The second is practice. So do your craft. That's how I like to translate it. And I actually frame this in this exact language from a bassist I know named Kyle Colclaser. He's an amazing bassist. He's just like, when you're stressed, whatever, just do your craft, right? So do your practice, though, is really how it's translated, abhyasa in Sanskrit, which really show up, like do the things work for you. Stop letting other things distract you. Listen to your conscience. When you listen to your conscience, you will not fall into an out of health experience. In Sanskrit, that's called prajnaparadha, this crime against wisdom. And that leads us towards being unhealthy. So two things, right? It's practice, it's self-inquiry, like really checking in. Check into your shadows as equally as your light, your strengths, But then the third, of necessity in this dark time, is sangha, community. Can't do it alone, right? I know that Hopi prayer, the time of the lone wolf is over. So we really do need to link elbows.
Yeah, I think it's just a myth that we could do it by ourselves. It's just, I don't think humans ever really did things by themselves. I don't
think we would have survived as long as we have had we not been tribal and communal.
The result of colonization is a big part of it, and the patriarchal culture, which is very much of like a hierarchical stance of life, domination. I am above you, I'm looking down at you, or I'm looking up to you. Whereas more like a divine feminine, or I would say like a matriarchal way, but I'm not into really matriarchy, patriarchy. I feel like the divine feminine and divine masculine, or male, female, however you frame that, we need to work together. And that's also that horizontal connection of community that the colonial, white, supremacist, patriarchal view has completely stripped from us. But the good thing is it's only been probably like 500 years, 400 years that we've been in this kind of illusion or amnesia. And so we have the memory of connection, and it's just accessing it and then applying it.
So, on your journey, was there anyone who has really inspired and supported you along your path? And do you have anyone you would consider a mentor?
Yeah, many. I think I have a lot of gatekeepers and people who have held flashlights and linked elbows with me when I have fallen, and I've fallen a lot. And I would say probably my number one supporter is my husband. I've been married to him for 24 years. We met in Costa Rica at the end of my backpacking hitchhiking trip when I was just trying to empower and find myself. And, with all relationships, it takes work. And we definitely had our moments where I'm like, why am I married to this dude, who is exact opposite from me in so many ways, but he really sees me. And I think that the people who have supported me on this path the most, and I would say, we have many guides, we have many angels, guides, seen and unseen, that we can just always give gratitude and thanks to. And that's how I often start my morning, is I have this prayer in Sanskrit that I do that is just honoring the sages and the teachers and the guides that have led me to today. And, from the beginning, I would say it was my grandmother, and she really helped me. Even when my entire family didn't understand me and was really toxic, she just always had my back. And yet she died of Alzheimer's and like early on dementia, really when I was very young, like 19. So I didn't really get to have my grandmother as that support. And then when I left home, it was more than finding the trees, the waters, what I could access in nature as an elder until the elders came. And then I started to find more and more of teachers in the form of elder form, like Wapio. And then through the midwifery community, I wound up studying very closely with Siti Opio, who is a Gullah Geechee tribe elder. And I studied with her. She was my granny midwife. She married my husband and I. She caught my baby. And studying with her gave me more of a deeper insight into herbs and nutrition and spiritual herbalism. Also led me to Matthew Wood, who I was apprenticed with for a while. And I love Matthew Wood. He lived on a reservation for many years. And I think as a white embodied man, he really wears his heart on his sleeve and really cracked open this lens of allopathy in a way that I could see that there is someone who spoke a language as to there is a subtle realm here in the plants. You can access this subtle realm with the plants. And then this also led me to my spiritual teachers. So I have Mother Maya, or Bri Maya Tewari, and she is a herbal yogini, Ayurvedic spiritual head of the Wise Earth Ayurveda school. And then my teachers of the Himalayan tradition. So I have Rod Stryker, who I no longer study with. Unfortunately, he has made some choices that I don't align with. And my teacher currently now, who I also started to study with when I was studying with Rod because it's his teacher, Pandit Rajmani Tiganayat. So he comes from a little place in northern India. The lineage of Himalayan sages comes through him and his wife that he married. Her last name when he married her was Agnihotra. So this is the fire keepers, the ones who are the fire tenders of the Himalayan tradition. And he's also a botanist, and he's an herbalist and was trained in herbology and Siddha medicine and Unani medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. A lot of my yoga and herbs have just found their parallel, and then I would say they're weaving through this tradition that, I'm just so dedicated to. They're still my current teachers.
Could you tell us more about your Wild Temple School? Like, when did you found it? What is its mission? What is its offerings? Because clearly this culmination of a journey you've been on has led you to that.
When you have a lot of different talents and skills and desires, and you're trying to make a living out of it, and make a living out of it in a way that also supports you. So I knew out the gate, being a runaway, that I wasn't going to find what I needed from someone else's design or template. I always knew I'd have to create it. So when my daughter was 4 years old, I then decided, all right, I'm going to merge all my skills and talents together and try this. I called it the Sattva Center. And I brought it just through consultations with our community. And I would work with people with herbs and nutrition and yoga and homeopathy and flower essences in a way that just supported them. But then I would say I was approached by another person, I would say, who's been a guiding light for me, my colleague at the time, Daisy Marquis, who is an amazing meditator and an herbalist. And many people listening probably know Daisy. She is such an angel. If we were to say there's like a Mother Teresa incarnate in this lifetime, she is one. And she approached me and said, Brooke, I've always wanted to run like a yoga training that included Ayurveda and herbalism and food. Would you do this with me? So we were just colleagues, and we created the Shanti School. And this was 2007 that she approached me. And this was after I'd already been studying and practicing. And then I already went and did more studies and met my Himalayan teachers. And I'm like, all right, now I've digested this material enough to be able to offer it at about 10% of what I know I can offer right now. And I'm going to keep studying and keep practicing. And then as I digest that, then I'll share the next level of the thing. So with that, how I started the Wild Temple was actually through apprenticeship form. So very old school way. But why I was able to do that in a way that felt so right was because I didn't share things until I was ready to. Right. And so I wasn't ever pulled out of my center in that way. And I think it also kept me really humble. I was never the guide or the mentor that was like, I know it all. And you're going to follow. I hope I never am that, honestly. I want us all to be like the flock of geese. You share the lead, I will share the lead. I'll honk for you, you honk for me when we're tired, right? We're all in this together. But so what happened was my apprenticeship started to refine. I moved to California. Daisy and I continued to work together for many years. I'd actually bring her out to California to teach her parts of the apprenticeship. I lead retreats all over the world. So I was leading them in India and Ireland and England. And I would, fly Daisy out there with me, and we'd still teach. And then she decided she didn't want to teach anymore. And so I was like, okay, it's just me. And so what happened was the whole thing just evolved, but it evolved from that subtle life force energy. Luminatore is how the alchemists would call it, or Paracelsus. Prana is how the yogis would call it, chi, right? So that's one of my main teachers. So following the prana, following that Shakti, I was given this download of, this is what you're to do now. You're going to offer it in this 500-hour module so you can certify people professionally. And it's through Yoga Alliance is how I certify people. And I did it in modules, and I did it in that way. I would say the first framework started in 2009. I created the LLC, the Wild Temple School of Yoga and Herbal Wisdom, in 2015. And because it was an apprenticeship, I wove in the yoga in a holistic way to the herbs. And most of our times were spent outside. Even though I had a classroom and I had yoga studios, I rented the California College of Ayurveda. I was in their Lotus Room for years. I still was and always will be such a fan and a devotee of nature. And nature is the life force, right, that we're wanting to connect to. So we would have the Madrone Grove or the Pine Grove, all of these different forest classrooms that then really created and shaped this wild temple. And my husband, he's a wordsmith, he named it. And yeah, I would say that's really, yeah, he named it. Yeah. And that's, also the name of my podcast, but it's really, it's just this weaving in of these ancient systems with modern science in a way that really meets the needs for today. So whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, whether it's spiritual orienting or health, that's all framed in this methodology I call the Sage Apprenticeship. So that's really the heart of the Wild Temple School.
Is it in its incarnation now pretty much virtual, or do you still do things in person, whether it's retreats in other countries or here in your backyard or whatever?
Yeah, such a great question. We are hybrid. So I am in person in Asheville, North Carolina, and online. So I have a very strong international community. Right now we have Scotland, UK, Brazil, Costa Rica, Australia, Ireland, England. Yeah, there are a lot of people all over the world. And so what I've done is I actually took a little break from retreats because I really firmly believe in two things. And I'll never teach what I can't practice. So if I'm not embodying it myself, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and share this. And that really comes from when we are teaching yoga. If you're not actually doing the practices, you start to lose touch with them. And so you can do harm. You forget how the effects alchemize in your body, or how intense something might be, or how nuanced it may be. So even making teas and formulas of herbs, like, you don't want to just share a recipe that you didn't try out yourself, right? So I'm a big firm believer of that. This brings me back to what is health and that vibrancy. I think it's capacity. What our capacities will ebb and flow depending on the stressors again in life, until we're completely established in self, in that vibrancy, in that essential nature, in a world that is healthy. Are we ever going to get that in this lifetime? I don't know, right? But we can work on our capacity. And one of the things that I realized with 2020 was my capacity to hold a group going to a very powerful place, which is also what I love to do, is be in community in these sacred sites that are incredibly powerful. What happens though is, if you've ever had a spiritual experience, or you're in like a power portal, like you're on a dolmen in Ireland, or you're visiting a temple in India, or you're on a ley line in Glastonbury, England, like that power can spin the mind, it can activate your nervous system, it can really be intense. And when we have the intensity of the news and overwhelm, and we're in the jobs that we hate, and we're super stressed, and we show up to retreat, we better hope our retreat leaders and guides are stable. Their nervous system is wired in a way that they can relax and kind of hold you, and that they can take charge if any kind of chaos happens, or if something falls apart. Right. And so what I realized at that time was I didn't have that capacity. I was at my own push of overwhelm and stress, that I couldn't hold the space for others in the ways that I wanted to, in light of 2020 and COVID and all the fears that were heightened. And so, so I took a break. We also moved from California back to Asheville, North Carolina. So now it's just, I'm waiting to build a temple space, or to find one. Anyone listening, if you know. Because I do feel, not only can Mother Nature hold us in calming, like we know this through, forest bathing, for example, or just going outside and taking a walk, or sitting by a tree, we all of a sudden come into calm, and we feel ourselves again, and we feel regulated. When you have a classroom, when you have a space that you've been doing beautiful practices, whether it's chanting or praying or invoking some kind of plant spirit, or whatever, your pleasure. I know that many people listening have different entryways into the healing arts, but when you do this in a particular place, what happens is that energy, that it's called Shakti Peet, the energy takes seat, that healing force takes seat. And so then you can actually go into a place, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so good just being here. And that's also the relational field, is another way of kind of looking at that. Like we're actually healing the relational field that's in between us. And anyway, so that's why I think community in person is really important right now. And I know we have a lot of like pandemic, endemic, all of these things that could possibly skew our ability to be able to gather together as potentials, right? But we also have, in light of the sages of the Himalayan tradition, we can work with sound vibration, our own body practices, and plants to amp up a particular area, Shakti Peet, do a fire ceremony, for example, to make that field of that particular place ward off the stressors or the pathogens.
Mm.
Can seem really esoteric to some, totally woo-woo to others, but those of you who have experienced something like this, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
You're on the hunt for the right space here in this area, I guess, to do more in-person stuff.
Yeah, and I do teach out of Asheville Yoga Center every Wednesday. I do have my apprenticeship, my Sage Apprenticeship runs. I just launched the first level. I do the second level will launch in the fall, and I do that right out of my living room. But I am thinking about just getting a yurt, a beautiful lotus bell tent and putting that in the backyard so we can invite more community in.
So maybe sort of akin to, walking into a house and feeling nice and cozy and calm and comfortable or something like that, I guess, basically.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, I know I've shared with you, I had to drive a little bit out of where I'm on the marsh right now where we're recording, and I'm here helping my family, my parents, pack up their home to move to the mountains. And one of the things that I love about when I come to their home, there's a certain energetic quality to it. It's so homey. It's so like they love to fix up the house inside and outside. They're master gardeners. They love, flowers fill the place. They cook. There's so much of this like, life force in this house, right? And then when they move to another place, I'm always like, but the soul of the house, like, oh, we're going to miss that home. But then what's so beautiful is that then they'll pack up their bags, they go to another place, and they do them with all the gatherings and all that connection, whatever, with that land that they're on. They tend in relationship to the plants that grow there. And then it has this unique energy that's not just them, right? But it is its own thing. And so that, I think, is just a really great analogy, Jennifer, because I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Like, that palpable home. Right? Or church, if somebody likes a church or a synagogue or a temple, right?
Definitely felt that there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not very religious, but, I'm like, why do I feel so comfortable?
Yeah. And I don't
like
think a lot of people are religious these days. I think there's like a rise in agnosticism and atheism. And I know, like I shared, that was my background, I'm still not religious, but I believe in spiritual energy. And I feel that this is really boiling it down to Mother Nature again, or just nature, if we want to take out that term mother. But if we're feeling the elemental qualities of this creation and the forces of creation, when those qualities are condensed in a certain area, and that it feels really beneficial when you're there, you feel like you've just plugged in and you've revitalized, right? And there's a vibrancy to you. That's a healing force, right? And we can cultivate that with relationship to tending and caring and stewarding, or I know that term is not really favored upon in some more of our native traditions. Some people really believe the land does not need to be stewarded, but I did just get back from a very long tour. It was beautiful. I was helping to promote permaculture. His name's Costa. He's the famous garden gnome of ABC Australia's garden show. And so he wrote this book. It was a co-creation with Brenna Quinlan. She was the illustrator for this book about gardens and flowers for children that she and Costa did together. And one of the things that I learned in this permaculture movement and tour that we were helping to promote, we got to stay in all of these amazing locations of other gardeners, other community organizers of farmers markets, to a huge 500-person warehouse called Food Connect in Sydney, to the botanic gardens, like everything. And one of the places that we stayed or we visited was Hannah. I forgot her last name, but she's also a famous person on the garden show of ABC Australia. And one of the things that I learned about her land was it's in Tasmania, and it's on the edge overlooking the entire city of Hobart, which is the capital of Tasmania. They acquired the land because it was so toxic. So through the permaculture practices, they were able to restore balance in a 10-year cycle of seasons, putting in the right plants, right native plants, and just tending and caretaking and stewarding this land to bring it back to a place where then it's back, not wild, but there was a regenerative quality where they could grow their food and then have that relationship. So I do feel that there is a need for stewarding, as well as in aspects and places nature doesn't need us. But in a lot of areas, we've just polluted nature so badly that it is our job to really...
If we've been bad stewards, or then it behooves us to be good stewards, to reverse the ills, and then you get a level playing field, and you can go, okay, nature, you're back at it now. Sorry about that, but you've got it. You can take it from here. Oh, I was just gonna say to Brooke that because of everything that we're learning with you now here, and because of everything I was like reading on your website and everything, I'll probably be trying to get in touch with you some more here, even outside of this. Just
I would love that. Yeah, we're kind of new to the community again, even though we've been here since '98. We left for California for about 7 or 8 years, and then coming back here, we've only been back 5 years, and a lot of that has been pandemic. It's
trying to rebuild community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I definitely want to be more like linked up to the herbal communities too, but also this piece that I feel herbalists need are really this embodiment piece. Like I saw like so many herbalists that are not embodied and have more of like a mental or emotional unhealed aspects of themselves, that working with like yoga and plants together it's amazing. It's like this gateway in, and you're like, oh, this exists, which is just really delightful.
I mean, maybe you could make a specific class or offering to herbalists to sort of learn how to be more embodied. I don't know.
It's hard with the terminology. You say the word yoga, they're like, out. You say the word tantra, they're like, curious and out.
When they're out, I'm like, well, you're just not sick enough.
Ready to receive.
Maybe that, or maybe it's not right for them. I don't know. Maybe they're just like, my mom's always trying to get me to meditate, and I'm like, I can't do it. I am better if it's like married with the physical.
Yeah.
Right? Like I need to do a yoga, which is like I don't know if I can. Is it a meditation? It's a form of meditation. I don't know if you would class it as meditation, or like a running or some walking, or just or like I was thinking I would really like Tai Chi because it's breath and movement, and I'm like, I need that. I can't sit down and meditate.
Yeah.
It's not right for me. And I keep telling her that, but she does not listen to me, and it's okay. But I'm like,
I just want to say kudos for you understanding that about yourself. I would like to just offer, I see you in what you just shared, and I want to validate that it is not right for you. At this time, it may not ever be right for you. We all have different proclivities, and some medicine for one person, a medicine for one person is a poison for another. We know this, right? And we also know that the dose can be the poison or the medicine. So when you have a heightened state of the world right now, and possibly in the body that's creating a lot of business up in the mind, it is really challenging to just sit and be quiet. Honestly, it can be like putting on the brakes, and all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, all this stuff is coming up and it's so overwhelming, and it creates anxiety. That is not medicine, right? That is poison. What yoga is, the ability to meet a person where they're at and to give them the tools to get them into the next little place that helps them feel better. And I think if we apply, and how I do with the Wild Temple School, is if we apply our herbology in this lens of yoga, right? This is a beautiful methodology that's like, let's tend to the body, let's tend to the breath. And what if that just looks like, I like to swim for my meditation. I like to walk for my meditation. Science shows that walking is some of the best medicine because it's for integrating hard experiences, for relaxing your whole entire nervous system and pulling you into parasympathetic, or even the ability to have that light switch work, going into sympathetic and parasympathetic in a very easeful way because of the bilateral symmetry that it's doing. Right? It's the same reason it's crawl. So when we're walking as a meditation, we're breathing, and then couple that with the weaving in of aromatic plants of the pine and the spruce, you are in a natural, beautiful meditation that is right for your needs. And it's not sitting on a cushion noticing your thoughts. The gift of having like a whole treasure chest of skills, but knowing what to use when for whom, it becomes more formulaic, and it's about the methodology. Like what's your gateway in, and what do you want to see as a result? Let's do that formula.
It's easier for me to process while I'm physically I don't know if it's the ADD, I don't know what. I feel like my body almost needs to be moving for me to then my brain to be able to process something. I feel like I've always been that way. And coming back to jobs, my job, one of the things I like about my job is it's very physical. And one of the challenges I'm having is when I look at other jobs, they're on the computer, and I'm like, I can't do it. But there is, if you work at home, a treadmill you can get that goes under your standing desk. And I was like, oh, that's good.
Can I speak into this? I can give you a little bit of the reason why in a yogic and a Tantra yoga framework. So I'm a Tantra Yoga Therapist is what one of the professional trainings that I offer people in this Sage program. And that's what you just shared is, if we bring it to like the body, the mind, and energy as really three things of focus. Energy can be breath, but it's also your energy. When we have a lot of thoughts in the mind, whether you just diagnose yourself as ADD or whatever it might be, you're just distracted or overstimulated or stressed, there's a lot of energy up in the head. That energy up in the head means it's not in the body often. And so when you're doing your walking or your bike, you're cycling, maybe you have a bicycle desk. I actually have a bicycle desk. I love it.
People do, yeah.
Then you're distributing the energy back into the body. So it's not just all up in the head, because one of the old adages is where energy flows, mind goes. Where mind goes, energy flows. So if you're bringing your mind back into, oh, yeah, I got to do some jogging here now, the energy is going to come out of your head and be redistributed in the body. And now you're back to that holism. That vital life force is not just up here. All your vital organs aren't struggling because you're not just all up here. And instead, there's a redistribution where you can find homeostasis. That's health. And another way of looking at this is through, in the yoga cosmology, there's a philosophy that is like the stronghold or the backbone of both yoga and Ayurveda, or I would say even yoga, Ayurveda, and Tantra. It's called Samkhya philosophy. And it's just all about how from creation, all of the elements come down into like a tangible physical form: fire, water, earth, air, ether. In that evolution or the dissolution back to the subtle nature, or the evolution back to tangible material realm, there are these kind of three forces of creation that bring everything into existence. And the one is just a lot of energy. We can think this in our own selves, like when our thoughts are firing, when we're very active, when we are really ambitious, or we're fired up, we can make things happen. So we bring things into the world in that way. And that's a very natural quality that is called rajas. And it's like a lot of stimulation, kinetic energy, even activity. To balance that activity, we also need its opposite. We need rest. We need the slowing, calming down, even to stillness or inertia. And that's another quality of nature. So we have activity, and then we have rest. And then we have, when you yoke them together, or when you're coming from activity into rest, you have this all of a sudden little sweet spot of where there's this harmony, and everything's like, oh, there's a clarity, a calm, like a vibrancy that's like a light. And this is the goal of Ayurveda, at least. It's the goal of health. And when we're dull to the senses, when we're on the couch watching Netflix, eating just a ton of potato chips for like 3 days, and then you're like, oh my God, I feel awful. I can't move for another 3 days, right? We're dulling our senses, drinking 3 beers every night. We've turned on the central nervous system. We've dulled our senses. That's that inertia. What nature would do then, or what we need to do to get out of that, is to create that kinetic activity, to get that energy going. So with this as like a framework, a very simple framework, the psychology that yoga lends itself to is that when you have a very busy, overactive mind, you actually have to come in, right? We want to bring yoga to meet a person where they're at. You want to come in with busy, because then it's like giving the busy something to do. And then nature, Mother Nature is like, all right, you've been busy enough. You ready to slow down? Let's slow it down. Let's slow it down towards rest. And then you get that sweet spot, which is where people meditate. That's that goal. You're catching the activity, you're bringing it into that sweet spot of calm, and then you can meditate. And we have herbs that can help us with that too, like milky oats, skullcap, passion flower. If we have a lot of that frenetic activity, and we can kind of bring us into that, kind of slow it all down. Or if we're in the opposite end of the spectrum, we're really dull, we're really lethargic, we're bored even, that's where coffee and cacao and stimulants are really actually helpful, and it can kind of lift the energy a little bit to meet.
It sounds like you're kind of saying the practice is, in terms of meeting people where they're at in that way, is like it's training the body to be able to open up to the other things that maybe if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, then it's like, okay, well then just do this that you can do. But by doing that, it's like carving out a path to get to the other steps that may have seemed off limits. I mean, you can even, in simplest terms, you can think of it in terms of the flexibility, right? It's like, oh, I can't do yoga. Those people bend completely in half and backwards and da-da-da-da. It's like, well, you start somewhere. They didn't just magically get up one day and do that,
I mean, it was, when I first started, because of the state of my digestion, it was so painful. Like I just could barely move, and you're in a whole class with people and you're like, I'm so embarrassed. I can't do, oh my gosh.
And it keeps you in your head, right?
Yeah.
Just in your head, like, I can't do this. I'm not good. This is not meeting a person where they're at. That's not yogic then. Right? So if our goal is really to meet someone where they're at, that's actually one of the definitions of yoga, meeting someone where they're at and taking them to a better place. So if we're being cookie cuttered into fitting into a pretzel pose, we're not meeting people where they're at. But instead, like, so for you, Jennifer, we'll just use the example, I'd love to give you skullcap, milky oats, maybe for a nighty-night practice, right? Or something like after work, just to help you relax. This could be one example. So you have the forces of nature, if we're looking at the elementals and the external world supporting us. The forces of nature and circadian rhythm are kind of going to sleep. There's a heavy quality that's happening between 6 and 8 p.m. And so post dinner, let's have you with like a little relaxing digestive. Then let's just get you into some place where you can just stretch and breathe. Maybe you breathe in as you lift your arms and you breathe out as you bring your arms down. It's giving you something to do. Your mind is like, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, I can do this. And then that coordination of, I'm going to inhale, my arms are up. I'm going to exhale, my arms are down. That right there starts to tame the mind until maybe you do that 10, 20 times or variations of very simple stuff like that. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel more calm on a very physiological level, a very practical level. If you do certain things, you're triggering the vagus nerve, you're pushing yourself into a calm response. And then you can sit. And if you have that weaving in, this is what my unique skills and talents, just because I love them all, both, right? When you weave in the plants with that practice of breath connecting to the body, which is our definition of yoga, right? You have all those helping you to now bring you into what we would call a meditation, right? Which might just be being in the moment and listening to your breath or feeling the breath. And then you experience a little win and you're like, oh my God, it's not what I thought it was. Right? And it feels so good and I liked it, like instead of this like, oh, I hate meditation, right? Which I really resonate with. When you have a system that is coming from complex trauma, typical definition and entryway into meditation does not always serve that person. You actually need to do a lot of healing work with a psychotherapist, EMDR, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever it may be, to then get the trauma out so you feel safe enough to get into that calm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are like the details that when people throw around, oh, just meditate, blah, 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 blah. I think that gets lost. It's like, yes, but, you have to find what works for you.
I just want to maybe shine a little light on, we're really new to the science of understanding the psyche in relationship to the nervous system. Polyvagal theory coming forward as a template for understanding it's not just the two branches of sympathetic and parasympathetic, but there's actually a freeze response. And there's actually the ventral vagal nervous system, which is community connection and how we can co-regulate one another. Or you can pick up a cat or a dog, someone you love, hug, and there's a co-regulation experience that then calms you down. We are so new to this science that I think that the more we share it right now, it gives permission that we are not all meditators from the get-go. It's not attainable. It might not even be our medicine in that traditional sense of sitting on a cushion, but Tai Chi, Qigong, a moving meditation, dance, anything that then can maybe get you to a moment of stillness. That's the formula of doing you so that you are strong in you and not what other people are expecting you to be, or even what your idea is of it. That's the nature of, I think, this like beauty of awakening that we're all experiencing right now, which is, I feel, a really high level of a wake-up call where we're being given a lot of tools. It's not all doom and gloom. Like there's an equal opposing light force that is happening while all this darkness is just like seemingly permeating everything. There are some amazing, amazing, beautiful things coming to light right now. And that's one of them, is that we can all be meditators in the way that works for us. Maybe even taking out that term meditation. Maybe it's my calming moments, my sacred pausings.
Let's not forget to talk about your podcast. So tell us, briefly about the Wild Temple podcast. Why did you start it? And what subjects do you like to cover on it? And I will put, of course, all the links in the description, so everyone who wants to check out Brooke's podcast, they can.
Yeah, thank you for asking. The Wild Temple podcast came about, I think, in just 2021, when I was really trying to find my own voice and realizing that I have a lot of tools that, even though I run this school and these apprentices, like I've always been a little in the closet. And it's probably partially because of the subject matter, because of the charge of the words that hold my skills and talents, like Tantra and yoga, because there was a part of me that really felt I needed to still be safe and hide. And so I really use this as a medicine tool to not only share a lot of these really beautiful insights. I've been able to work with a lot of people, both as a receiver of amazing, amazing skills and methodologies, especially from India. And a lot of this is like just recently coming out of the caves in the past decade. So a lot of this has not been attainable for humanity. And I'm really lucky to have an amazing teacher. I have a very beautiful community that I study with. He trusts us in being torchbearers of these teachings. And so we've been given the charge of share this. The world needs it right now. We can't have this locked in the vault. And so partly it's that. It's sharing these techniques and modalities. It's also, again, just finding my voice. And as a woman that has always had to battle feelings of disempowerment, mostly because I used to keep getting ill all the time. It would just take me down. But also just not really having the support, specifically when I was younger, right? So really stepping into myself and helping others do so also. So I love to bring in guests, and I love to even help people with my apprenticeships into really stepping into the strongest version of themselves, because we really need you. We really need you to be your masterful herbalist that you are, or your very dedicated, passionate women's rights activist, or the nurse that you are, and to do so without having all of the stressors attacking your vitality so that you're only partially living. We need really vibrant, heart-led people that are professionally doing great job out there and personally doing a great job out there while they're just feeling great. Yeah, so I cover what I call sacred technologies. So this is yoga, tantra, and ayurveda with herbal wisdom. And that's a lot of what we talk about. And I'll bring in experts in the field in all of those modalities, but then also just kind of meeting the need of the time. So I like to offer it in the full and the new moon, and even chasing the moon in the Vedic astrology of what that means, and letting that be a lens of how we can perceive the world and really align our emotional lens to that, because we're largely guided by these mysterious forces called emotions. And the Vedic astrology has a very large component of what are called lunar mansions or nakshatras. And they are 27 realms of our individual and collective way of how we emote, how in that emotion we can think or feel or perceive the world. And so I think that's such a fun tool to look at. As well as, I don't know if I said, honoring the plants. I love the ability to work from the body into the subtle realms with first teas, tinctures, things like that, powders that can, spices, for example, that help to strengthen the vital force of your body. But then working more in the subtle realms with flower essence therapy, homeopathy, drop dose tinctures. Again, my mentor was Matthew Wood, so I really love that aspect of herbalism. But to really get into the subtle realms for healing. So a lot of that, because again, I really hold mostly apprenticeships and then these retreats, I can't get all of the information to just our community. And
So the podcast becomes the extension by which you can still disseminate further information, or even to people who might not get a chance to do the retreat or something like that. It's still giving them something. So
yeah, it's free,
Yeah.
right? It's free information, but it's connecting and it's highlighting other people also, and just the vast amount of amazing people we have. I don't know if you've heard of what is it called? It's like Reasons to Be Cheerful. So there's a like a newscast newsletter called Reasons to Be Cheerful. And I just think that things like that are really important right now, where we're just being inundated with the negative news because of dominant culture wants to subjugate and suppress us, right? And to controlling us, and that these are the only things that are going on in the world, when that's not true. We have such an undercurrent and underground movement of health and wellness and passion and self-discovery, and people truly living in very unique ways, that having them onto a podcast, and I know you experience this as well, right? You have these voices and their lived experience, and then other people get to experience new ways of living through their stories and through their lenses. And that, to me, it just lights me up.
that's why we had you on here, Brooke.
Yes.
Oh.
I think one of the best parts about doing the podcast is getting to talk to a whole bunch of really, really interesting people. And then you feel really, really honored, because you're like, wow, you take at least 2 hours out of your day and you're talking to little old me. I often think about, it's a podcast about connection, and then a byproduct, or maybe not, of the podcast about connection is we make connections.
Oh, I love that.
We make all these connections with all these people, and they've really turned into people that I've considered friends and pretty amazing. I had no idea. I was just like, wow. When I started, I just thought it was I'd interview one person and that would be it. And it kind of has taken on a little bit of its life of its own. And yeah, I'm just very surprised by the response and then the connections we form with people through the interviews. I had no idea that we were forging those connections.
It's like sitting by a fire,
Yes.
or having tea with one another. Yeah, definitely magical.
And I think people are hungry for this type of connection, even though we're over the internet, we're not sitting by each other physically, but I think it still has a similar effect.
We certainly hope.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like it does, but yes, that's the hope. And
well, before we send you on your way, Brooke, do you have any further advice in general for just anybody who might be interested in pursuing some of these practices that you've talked about and that you offer? Like if somebody was just like, oh, I'm just scratching the surface here and I'm just new to diving in, like what might you offer? What might you say?
I think the thing that comes to the top of my head is really just to inquire about this connection word and even throw out everything that you know about what yoga is and think of it as a word that demonstrates our ability to connect and apply it with what you love. So if what you love is tea or sitting by a tree, and you do that, and then you feel into, as we began, just breathing, and then you start to recognize, all right, well, this connection of this nervine, if I'm speaking to herbalists, right, or a naturalist, I'm outside by the tree and I'm feeling the support, or I feel spacious, I don't feel constricted anymore because I'm out in nature, and I'm coupling that with just my breath. See where it leads you to, and see if you can start to feel into that connection of the breath and the body and what transmutes from that. So the alchemy of that being then a little more vital, feeling a little more whole, a little more yourself, a little more vital. And if this is the medicine that we're all seeking, what are the ways and how often can you insert it into your day? It doesn't take very long. It can be, again, if it's the right tool for you, it's the right medicine for you. And so just leaning in on that, no matter what anyone else says, no matter how weird it is. One of my favorite things is just legs up the wall. So I'll go to a place, and if I usually won't do this at a place I don't know the people, but if I know the people and they're hosting me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so exhausted. Do you mind if I take a corner for a moment? I'll just lay down, put my legs up against the wall. It just takes 5 minutes. But then your adrenals come back into balance. The blood flow has just supported it. You're back into these even waves of breath. And it's basically like having a cup of chamomile tea, maybe a little adaptogen in it. And then you're just like, oh, okay, I'm myself again. So listening to the body's wisdom is also listening to nature. And that's this connection that we're all looking for that can be found in this word yoga. And no matter what tools you particularly adhere to, then, what are those tools? Use them, to get there. And it's, that's the simplicity of, how resourceful we can be and how powerful we really are. It's really just bringing these simple tools back. And it's revolutionary, honestly. It will elbow room out all of the stress and the dysfunction and remind you what's important.
I'd like to thank Brooke for joining us today. Please check out our podcast and also her website, which has all the information on the Wild Temple. So if you're interested in the apprenticeship, I'm assuming level 1 would start again the next year. So, right?
Yeah, but I do have a flower essence practitioner training course coming up. That would be perfect for herbalists. Yeah, that's June and July. And that's really through the lens of this yogic psychology and the Tantra Yoga lens of, we meditate with the plants weekly. You get a kit to understand how we work through these levels of healing, body to mind to even that vital life force. And we do it, it's all about methodology. So really, when you have a map, then you can apply, all right, I'm going to apply my tools and skills, but I give you the map. And then we do the practices together, so you know it's not just me telling you this is what's up, right? There's an embodied experience, and an embodied experience and a shared experience of a group where we do meet in person and online. Yeah, and that would be one that I would say, yeah, check that out. It's called Plants Drop Wisdom.
And you can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can listen to us and watch us on YouTube. Again, we have a Patreon, so if you'd like to support us, if you have an extra $1, $5, or $10, that would very much help us out. But if you don't, a like, a follow, a comment would also help us out. So everything is very, very much appreciated. Thank you for listening. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I just want to remind you about that $25 coupon code to Brooke's Flower Essence class if you're interested. And that is all caps stories, STORE, sorry, STORIES. And I hope you guys have a lovely day. The link to this class will be in the description. No worries about how to find it.